Hey guys, Corey here, back with another Ableton Live music demo. April Fools, this is Jay. Today we're going to be doing some sculpting. Corey is not here today, so I'm taking over and running the stream by myself, so I apologize in advance if things are a bit clunky. But please chat to me if I need to make any adjustments to volume or anything. Let me know. We're actually, so today I have some stuff to show you in Blender. I figured we just start with some basic sculpting and talk about that and just sort of have a little brief hangout session just to kind of tide us over while Corey's gone. I will also be, these next 2 weeks, doing some like live streaming demos and things, showing you how everything's set up, and just sort of going into how everything works here, how I've kind of got it set up where I can switch between multiple shots, go from a computer screen to a live camera, to another live camera, and how OBS works and everything like that. So yeah, that will be the next 2 weeks. Look out for our posts on social media. So over here I have my, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of this, Huion. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. But it's a drawing tablet, essentially. This is their Canva 13 brand, I guess, or Canva line. It's the 13-inch version, which gives you an extra display. So I have, of course, something different on my laptop. Well, this is connected to my laptop, but it's displaying its own image. So it's separate from, it can display its own, it's like another monitor, essentially. The great thing about this monitor is that it's touchscreen. So it gives me the ability to, in this case, sculpt by drawing right on the screen. You can already see that I can draw straight onto the monitor, which is really cool. I've got another, so in this view, I set this up so I can show you sort of what hotkeys I'm using. Over on the left here, I've got a variety of little shortcuts. And if I bring up the, let's see, the little window here, you can see if I drag it over, that this gives us all of our settings. This is where we can kind of customize what what every button does. So we have, along with these, we also have, I don't know how well you can see them, little buttons on the pen here, the two buttons here that we can assign to whatever we want. If I switch into this view, you can get a better, you can kind of see better what we're working with. I can come in and I can click each one of these buttons that correspond to the buttons on the side and assign them to different things. So basically for Blender, now this can change depending on what what application you're using. But we can actually, and I believe, yeah, you can assign different programs. So you can add, say, if you're using Photoshop or I don't know, Inkscape or something, you can assign your hotkeys differently depending on what program you're using. So let me turn on my little mini cam here so you can still see me. So yeah, there's that. And so yeah, all these can be assigned to how you like them. And these are just set up basically. I had just installed all this on my laptop, so I didn't have any of my preset stuff. So I just went through and assigned the basic ones to these keys, so I don't have to use anything on my keyboard. And I'll probably come back in here and change some things because I've probably forgotten something that I usually have over here. We can also come in and see, if we click up here, we've got the options for the pen as well. I've got this first button here assigned to the middle mouse button. You use that all the time in Blender to move the camera around. It's kind of an orbit around your object. I'll show you once we get into the program. And then the top one I keep as right button so I can get into whatever menus and stuff I need to. So yeah, there's that. And we can bring this. Actually, I can't bring it anywhere. I can't bring it to the screen with the pen. So I'll just leave it open just in case I need it. And yeah. Okay. So let me give you a quick rundown of Blender. I'm just going to start a new sculpting project. Actually, let's just go into a basic Blender file so you kind of know what it looks like when you first open it. Save that. So this is Blender. This is the main screen here. Let me switch back to that. Where would I be best? I'm gonna put myself down there. There we go. Well, yeah, I'll move myself around so you guys can see what we're looking at here. But yeah, so you've got your file, your typical like file browsing and basic functions up here. Next to that, you have these different tabs, and each of these tabs are for a different process in like the animation or modeling, whatever you're doing as part of the 3D. In the 3D environment, you have your options to kind of change the whole layout of Blender. You can see when I go through these that the whole layout will shift to something different. A lot of these we won't be using them at the moment. I think it's lagging at, I don't know. I think my, might actually, oh, that looks good. I was thinking maybe we have to calibrate the tablet. I don't know if I can show you that, but that is an important thing, that if it feels like it's off, you can actually go in that same menu that I showed you and recalibrate how your pen affects the screen, but I don't think we need to do that. It looks okay. So yeah, so basic Blender, top bars, different views. You can do everything from the layout view. You don't have to switch. It's honestly just a UI change. It has nothing to do with the functionality or anything. It's all just changing the UI so it's a little easier to get to what you need when you're doing that specific task. So yeah, in our case, we're doing sculpting. So I could switch it over to sculpting. You can see it gets rid of a lot of the kind of the overlays. We no longer have our bottom like grid where we can see kind of scale. We no longer have any of the objects in here like our light and our camera. So we will be using this view once we get into the sculpting, but I'll continue to go over some basic stuff in here because this is what like I said, what you'll see when you first join in. I could, let me see. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can zoom. I guess I'm kind of, let's see. I'll see if I can zoom. I don't know if I can zoom or not. I might be able to scale up my resolution on my tablet, and that might make it a bit easier to see. Let me go into the display settings, and hopefully this won't mess anything up, but we can try. If I disconnect for a second, I'll be back. Let's see, we want our, let's see, scale, recommended size. Let's see, I can do 175. There we go. How's that look? Let me know if that's a little easier to see. It's actually a little easier for me to see too. Although I don't have as much room, I can still at least navigate a little bit better. So yeah, okay, windows up there. We have some other general settings. There's a lot going on, but really for sculpting, we don't need that much. That's kind of why I start with that. Because it's a little bit more, it's more accessible as far as like, it's not so much a technical thing as it is a like conceptualize of a piece of art. Let me see, where did I gotta bring my chat back up. There we go. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, let's just get right into sculpting. So let's just go to File, and from here in File, you can do New, and there's a few different types of new projects that you can make. For this one, of course, we want to do sculpting. We don't want to save that. We didn't do anything. So here we go. This is what you start with. You start with, essentially, you can think of it like a ball of clay. And that you can do pretty much anything with. So yeah, basically, we have our tools over here, whole list of different kinds of tools, and we have all of them do something a little bit different. Some of them are very similar, some of them are drastically different. It all depends on what you're trying to do. So basically, the first one here is their draw tool, and if I take this on to the circle here, you can see the sphere. It's a sphere because it's 3D. A circle is 2D. A little 3D 3D terminology there. But yeah, if we take this here, we can just kind of draw right on the surface of the object and start to sculpt. I mean, it doesn't look like much at the moment, but this is where you start. If we want to, probably the most powerful feature of sculpting is right here. This is so what I went over a little bit. Since we're zoomed in, usually you can see this whole bar up here. But if I hold the middle mouse button and I click on this and drag with the pin, it will drag across this menu so I can see the rest of it. Otherwise, it's easy to lose stuff if you are unfamiliar with that shortcut. So here we can turn on Symmetry. And when I enable Symmetry, you can see that when I put hover my pen over a certain part, you can see the other little blue dot move around as well. And what that's actually going to do is when I draw, it's going to be drawing the same exact thing on the other side. So you end up with a perfectly symmetrical object. Now I drew a little bit on this side before I didn't turn on the Symmetry. So we have a little bit of unevenness going on, but we can easily fix that by going into this little drop down menu here and hitting this button way down at the bottom that says Symmetrize. And we have a few options. We can do the different axes. I guess it's kind of hard to, well, I guess this is probably a good little visualization of that. If we're looking straight at the object, you can see that X over here is, now if I have, oops, that's the wrong perspective. I want to turn on, we go in here, and this is what I want. This is better to visualize this. So the front is, let's see, I don't actually have the correct keyboard for this. It's good to have a numpad when you're doing stuff in Blender because the numpad lets you control where the camera is. But you can also go up to View, and you can go to Viewpoint, and you can go to Front. So now I can see that I'm looking at this like straight on from what Blender believes is the front of the scene, essentially. And you can see this red line across is our x-axis. So if I go into the Symmetry tab and I go to my -x, which is actually, if I turn on this side, if I go into so if I go to Symmetrize this, you can see that the Z is the blue. So if I'm on the negative, I want the negative side will then be mirrored to the positive side. Excuse me. So if I hit that, you'll see that it should symmetrize it. So there we have what kind of looks like a brain. And it's been, you can see where the seam is, but we can smooth that out. Oops, if I get the right control. There we go. Now, since we have our Symmetry already, I can draw on here, and it should do the same on the other side. So yeah, if I go back, let's go back into that view. Get some tea. Okay, so now that we have that, so we've got Symmetry set up. You can also do Symmetry on multiple axes if you want. I mean, typically the Z-axis is, unless you're making something like a table, or like a table has, I guess not always, but a square table typically is symmetrical on both, in Blender's case, the Z and the Y axis. So if you have 4 legs, let's see, we can actually turn this on just to show you. You can see my little dots down here now. If I draw this, I can give it 4 little legs, or whatever these are. It can be a little creature. So now it's mirroring on both. If we look at it from the bottom, it's mirroring from, let's go into our view and go to viewpoint and go to bottom. You can see that we have X is this way, Y is this way. And when we draw, it's going to add a, it's going to make symmetry on all 4 sides, I guess, like a table. That's the best way I can think of it. I don't know what else would do. I guess 4-legged creatures are kind of symmetrical on two angles, but most of the time you're only going to do X. If we add all of these, it's going to be weird. We're going to have some, I don't know if anything in the natural world that's completely symmetrical on every axis, but humans are symmetrical. So if we were to try to draw a face, which I'm going to warn you, I'm not the best sculptor, but we're going to try to do something that sort of resembles a face, I guess, since that's what most of us are probably familiar with. Let us start a new sculpt here. Sculpting. I apologize if you can hear the fan on my computer. It running the stream, a second monitor, and Blender at the same time is a little taxing, so it seems to be holding up okay. We're not haven't lost a single frame yet, which is great. Only using 10% of my CPU. Oh yeah, you can totally well, animating it is a little different. There are some tools that they've talked about adding that will let you modify like paint over time, which is a really cool thing. You can also do a whole nother subject would be something in Blender called shape keys, and shape keys allow you to animate changes in the mesh itself. So this object right here is considered a mesh. If we go into a different mode here, so right now, when we opened a new file before, we were in object mode. Object mode is simply gives you the ability to move around objects and do basic transformations, and it's mostly for like positioning things in the world. But if we go to edit mode, you can see here that we can actually go in and look at every little vertice in this mesh. So every little one of these dots is a bit of information that's telling Blender how to build this structure, essentially. So yeah, there's that little thing we have right there is a vertice. That little thing is a vertice. These two things right here, that's a line, and then this is a quad. You can also do, hit F over here. This now is a try, although tries are to be avoided in most cases. Sometimes they're good, usually they're bad, but that's a whole nother story. So we undo. I actually have a key over here. So on my tablet, I'm using this button right here in the middle as my Control Z. I could just tap that and go back and fix our little vertice so he's back lined up with everybody. So yeah, we can come in here and select a whole bunch of vertices if we wanted to move a big chunk around. But we're talking about sculpting, not the process of changing vertices and like editing the vertices is a totally different form of 3D modeling. Typically called like box modeling is usually what it's referred to as box modeling, where you take a box, in this case, this file right here, go into edit mode, and start taking these faces and Unfortunately, I don't have a key set up for this, but if we hit E on the keyboard, I can extrude, taking these faces and moving them out and creating a shape this way. Whoops, that went the wrong direction. E on the keyboard, moving out. Actually, I was told, and it was suggested to me, that I turn on a setting here that will allow you guys to see what buttons I'm pressing on the keyboard. So let me bring up my preferences over here. Before we get into any sculpting, I guess doing a rundown of Blender is always a good thing. Just a basic intro to Blender, and then we'll get into some sculpting. So in here is our settings. A lot of this is just little things that you can change to make your life easier or more difficult. What I'm looking for is, I'm not sure, key mapping. There's a place where we can show the buttons that I'm hitting now. I'm not totally sure where it is, unfortunately. You may have to save that for another time. But inputs, emulate. Yeah, I might have to. That's their keyboard. A lot of Blender is digging through menus. 99% of the time, you're probably just going to be digging through a menu, looking for the option that you need, that you think is in that menu, but might actually be in a different menu, but turns out it is in that menu. It's just under a sub menu. There's a lot of stuff. It definitely is daunting. So if it seems daunting, if I'm talking about too many things at once, it's because it's daunting, and it still is for me. I still turn it on and I'm like, what is happening? What is happening in this program? I don't know where this is. I know it's an option, but I don't know where it is. One of these menus somewhere. Viewport. No, I won't spend too much time looking for it. Maybe next time we'll find it. I'll go look it up. Okay. Anyways, so back to Blender. Let's get our little circle back up here, our sphere here, and actually do some sculpting. So before we start, I'm going to turn on my X mirror. And then over here, I'm going to come check out some of these other brushes. Let me get that back up. That way you can see. Get some tea. All right, I needed some caffeine. Where were we? Okay, so brushes. You have a lot of options, and they're always adding new ones. But like I said, the basic ones, we have our draw brush, which essentially is like drawing on the surface. Not really. You're adding volume. You're always adding or taking away volume from the shape, no matter what you're doing. If I draw, I can actually, with the pen, I can draw lighter for like a less harsh. Essentially, it affects the strength of the brush stroke on the object. So if I press down really hard, you can see I can get a lot more out of that brush stroke. It's not a swimming move; it's a motion of the pen. And if I do it lighter, it's going to be a lot less powerful. It's actually, you can see up here what it's affecting. So we have our strength setting up here at the top. And you can see this little icon right next to it. If I turn that off, then it's going to be always 50, or 0.5, I should say. If I turn it on, it's going to vary with the pressure of the pen. I can also do the same for the radius, and this one you can actually see better. You see that little blue circle around where my pen is pointing. If I draw, actually, I guess you can't see it live, but essentially it's going to, the softer I press, maybe it'd be easier to see if I turn the strength off. A little bit, you can kind of tell. Yeah, you can sort of tell. You can see how I can sort of create almost like a spike or a brush, kind of a fall off to it. So yeah, there's some options there for that. Turn that one back off and turn that on. And it just depends on your preference. I guess it's, you know, or depending on what you're trying to sculpt. It can be very useful. And then what I'm doing over here is I'm holding down the control button essentially. And what that does is it inverts the it inverts what the pen does. So, you know, here I'm adding volume. Let's see, getting a little weird here. And here I'm subtracting volume. So you can see that I like indented that piece there. So I can I can hold control and then shift. And I've got these mapped to my little buttons right here. So the top one is control, where I can push in the mesh. And the bottom one is smooth, which is shift on the keyboard. You can do this. You don't need a tablet to do this. You can do this with like a mouse and your keyboard. That's the way I did it for a long time. I still sometimes prefer to do certain things with the mouse. Obviously it's what I started with, so it's sort of what became more comfortable for me, but I wanted to kind of expand into the possibilities of using a tablet, which really makes it feel less like I was talking about before, that whole like technical versus creative, which of course they cross over, but in this case with sculpting, you know, it's a much more like organic process. You don't have to worry about any numbers or anything. You're just doing all it's all in the, you know, it's all in your head, and whatever you can kind of like drawing, you know, you just draw out what you're thinking, and it can be a lot more natural to sort of develop an idea and stuff. So at least in my case, I don't know if that's for everybody, but for me, that's how it works. So yeah, we have our drawing tool. So that's just the basic one, but you can do a lot with it. Some people, this is the only brush that they use. I know it's not really looking like anything because we haven't got to the more drastic brushes yet, but we'll get there and we'll start to make something that actually looks like something. This is Draw Sharp, which is essentially the same as Draw, but instead you get a very sharp line. And this actually by default is subtracting volume. So you can see that it's going to subtract volume from the mesh. We can come in here, and I think if we hold control, it's going to do the opposite. So there we can create a more a sharper sort of a sharper edge. It's actually, all it is really changing the fall off of the regular draw brush. It's not really doing much, but we can actually control that up here in the settings, but we won't get into that yet. Next, we have the clay brush, which I don't hardly ever use. I think that it just kind of adds, it looks to me like it smooths things out, but I don't ever really use it. It's kind of a weird one. Don't really know what exactly it's supposed to do. There's some of these that don't really seem so useful to me. But I'm sure somebody out there uses it. It kind of has a weird sort of attitude toward it, or to it, toward it, with it, however it does. It feels like it's kind of like chipping away at the mesh a little bit. Like it's sort of adding volume, but not really, in a strange kind of way. The subtracting, when I'm holding control here, I wish I could get that those button prompts up. I really don't. I'd love for you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. I wonder if it's in here. Doesn't look like it. Anyways, I'm just holding control here, and that seems to like take away mesh, and it looks kind of cool. It looks like it's scraping off parts of the mesh almost. And like I said, I don't use it very often, but I could see how it could be useful. Next is the clay strips brush. Now this one I actually really like. This one sort of adds volume to the mesh in like a very organic sort of way. It seems, you know, similar to the regular clay brush, but this one adds it in kind of more of a controlled way. It doesn't seem to be as random as the regular clay brush is. So I can sort of like add volume in more of a like, this is really good for like defining muscles and things like that. You can kind of see how I could like define like a tendon in the arm or something. And actually sort of like get almost a, that doesn't really look like an arm, but you can kind of tell, like, here's like the bicep, and then we can go, it's kind of a weird way to do an arm, but you can kind of see how I could like sculpt away a little bit here. So what I kind of, to make this sort of crease, I'm gonna take away a little bit, and then I'm gonna add some more, just to sort of create like a little bit of a, I don't know, like this part of your arm, you know, that like the where your elbow is. I don't know. Anyways, that's the clay strip brush. Has some cool stuff. I really like it. It's kind of I don't know. It's really a matter of preference. You know, they all pretty much do the same way, the same thing in different ways. So, although there are some, I guess, and I say that, but then we get down to this one, which is what, clay thumb. So this one will, and I'm gonna hit F on my keyboard, and that resizes my the radius. You can actually see it change up here. Oh, I still have that turned on, by the way. I can turn that off. Actually, some of these I think are on by default. They are. So depending on the brush, it looks like it changes whether it uses the pressure for the size of the brush or not. This one is by default on, so I guess I might as well leave it on. But this looks like it, well, I guess it doesn't really push anything around. It's sort of, I don't use this one either. What? That looked like it added volume, but then took it away. It doesn't really push anything around. It just sort of does some, ooh, that's not good. So what's happened here is I've sort of messed up our mesh. This is this happens, but it's not a big deal. If we hold shift, we can smooth it out and it should go back to being okay. I can kind of push things around. Don't know what this is, but it's looking almost like something came to my head. I'm gonna get distracted, but it looks like a an animal. Here's the nose. There's the eyes. I'm gonna sink in this part for the eyes. I don't know what it is. It's sort of like a monkey, sort of, or a cat. I don't know. See, this is the sculpting process. So you're like, you mess around, and then something just like, I don't know, it just kind of appears to you, and you're like, oh, that's what that is. No, that's not the right kind of nose for. Of course, I should. If I had something in mind, I'd probably look at a reference, or I should be looking at a reference. But there it is. I don't know what it is, but it is a creature of some kind. So where were we? We did the thumb, the clay thumb, which I don't really understand or use, so that's why I don't understand it. But it looks almost like it smooths as well and sort of pushes things around and can easily mess up your mesh, but not entirely useful for me. This is the layer tool. Now, this one is kind of like the clay strips brush. Again, another one that I don't really use. Typically, you come up with, you know, 3 or 4 that you really like, and those are the ones that you kind of stick with. Special cases for some of these. Like this one's kind of cool. I guess we can sort of add a lot of... Actually, I've seen people use this one to create, like, ears and things like that, because you can easily layer on in a specific area a shape. Although what's going to happen here is, you know what? Maybe it's a monkey. I don't know. But okay, so we want to add, I know I'm going through the brushes right now, but this is a good time to touch on another topic. We want to add some extra volume here, and we're having problems because we've run out of mesh you can only pull it so far. It's like you only have so much clay. You know, once you pull, you know, if you're trying to make an arm, you can only take that clay so far before you run out, and it's gonna just not work, right? There's just nothing you can do. You have to go get more clay. So in that case, we have this thing up here called Dino Topo. I honestly don't know how to Dino something. It's not a dinosaur. It's to do with it. Essentially, it makes you more clay automatically. You don't have to worry about going and finding it. It does it for you. So there are some things about this tool that some sculptors would probably tell you it's a bad habit to get into using, because it can add a lot of unnecessary stuff to your mesh. It adds, it can really slow things down if you use it too much. So what I like to do is use it when I want to add stuff and then turn it off when I don't need to add anything. So with this on, you would be able to see, actually, before we start, I want to shade this smooth. Be a little easier to, it looks a little better already. But we saw this weird, kind of, the shadows on here are looking a bit weird. So if we come in here, and now we add the layer, and we kind of smooth this out, it's going to, actually, to be honest, I don't think that some of these brushes it does not work with. And I don't think this is one that it works with, because you can see as I draw, it's messing things up worse. So let's try it with our regular draw brush. And there we go. So you can see it still looks bad, but what it's done is it's actually, if we go into edit mode, you can see where this is all nice and kind of even along here. This has got all kind of weird and messed up. What it's done is it's added more to our mesh. So now we can continue to do that, and it will continue to add more to our mesh. But see, where the problem is you add too much, you run the risk of slowing down your computer. And by slowing down your computer, you run the risk of crashing Blender and losing everything that you've done. So it's, you know, partially for, you know, being safe, and partially for just getting into a good habit of not overusing it, and keeping it clean. You can see how nice and even this part of the mesh is, but then here, this is not nice. This is chaotic. You can actually see on the back of the ear here. See how big these are actually all tries. And in sculpting, it makes everything a try. There's no way of avoiding it. But so you can see the difference in size where I use the brush in the front here. These are a lot smaller than the ones on the back. So that's what that does. Go back into sculpting mode. I can draw some more back here, and we can smooth this out and try to clean up his little ear. So like I said, it only works with certain brushes, it seems like. And since we're here, let's give him little ears. We can clean up a little bit of this, and you can see that it's definitely a lot cleaner now. And I'll smooth out his head since it's right here. Okay. So yeah, that's what that does. Since we're done with it, since we added the ears and we cleaned them up, we can turn it off. And so we don't accidentally add way more mesh than we need to. And with that, there's also another tool up here while we're doing that. And then we'll get back to the our different brushes over here. But over here, there's a little drop-down menu called the Remesh tab. And it does what it says it does. It remeshes the mesh that you have, that you're working on. And this is actually a really good process to get into every once in a while to remesh your mesh. Um, Essentially, it's like taking a, like if you had, I guess it doesn't really work with clay, but I mean maybe it sort of works with the clay metaphor as you're well, not really, because what you're doing is you're essentially you're taking your object and you're wrapping a new thing around it. Say like you're shrink wrapping something or like vacuum sealing something. You've take that old thing is now not the outside layer anymore. It's got a whole new outside layer to it. Whether that layer is smooth or coarse or whatever, it's a whole new layer. So what the remesher does is it takes that information, it essentially takes a thing and shrink wraps it around your mesh and gives you a whole new mesh to work with, which is great because sometimes if things get messed up or you get like if one part like I was showing you is way more dense than the other, this has actually stayed pretty nice. This is not, excuse me, this is not too bad. We could work with this, but for the sake of demoing it, excuse me, we can remesh this object. So over in the remesh tab, you have a few options. This is the size of the remesh. So those vertices that we saw, the triangles, those are dependent. This setting will change the size of those when it remeshes it, when it redoes it. So if we go in here and just hit remesh, we might as well see it. You can already see that this has changed our mesh, and what it's done is it's actually turned it back into quads, which is what we like. We like quads. Quads are good. We can actually see here in our edit mode, they're all nice quads. That's what we want. We want quads. But not necessarily, I mean, we do want quads. I mean, it's not so important with sculpting, but quads are good. Yeah, so, okay, sculpt mode. There's sculpt mode. You can see he's not smooth anymore, but we can go back into this remesh option and smooth normals and remesh. There he is. There, now he's smooth. Okay, cool. So if I, just for demo's sake, if I take this and I scale this up and then remesh again, you can see that he's low poly now. This is actually a really good technique to make low poly characters. You go into edit mode, you see he's nice and low poly. This is actually, you could use this in a game or something. He's got, he's not very detailed, but the general shape is still there. This gives you a better idea of how it kind of shrink wraps around the object that you already have. So yeah, if we Control Z, press our little button on here, we want it back to higher resolution so we can actually sculpt. We can come in here now and we can go back and smooth out some more pieces. Maybe we want to, it's got kind of creepy human lips going on, so we'll have to fix that. But we can smooth out. So when I rotate, when I'm panning around, that's this, oh, wrong camera. That's this button on the front here. That's me hitting this front one, so I can kind of orbit around the object in that, and then holding the bottom one here, I can pan around, and then so that's Control. No, Shift. This is Shift. The bottom one's Shift. So Shift pans around, and Control will zoom in and out. If I hold that button, I don't need to press on the screen. I'm actually kind of hovering a little bit. I know it's hard to tell from here, but I'm not actually putting my you can move the cursor around without touching the screen. So if you hover above it, there's like a little, this may be like a, oh gosh, I don't know, like just a few millimeters above the screen. You can actually move the cursor around without doing anything to your mesh. So you can hold that button and pan around. Because if I was to touch this and then pan, it still works, but it's kind of like, I don't know, you can sort of hover above it and move. as well. That's just how I do it. I guess you can honestly just touch the screen and move it that way too, but it works either way. So yeah, back to this view. Grab some tea. Okay. So where were we here on our list of brushes? I think we're at the Inflate Brush. Yep. So this one does pretty much what it says. It will sort of, well, inflate the mesh in a way. Let's see. I'll just demo it. I might as well, since I'm right here. It's actually, I use it quite a bit. It's really good for getting kind of, you can get some really good creases. See how I've kind of like pushed this? I'm only sculpting in this part, but it's sort of made that shape of the ear, that top part of the ear. And you can sort of add volume, but it adds volume in more of a, in not in all directions. It's sort of more like a, how to put it? Well, it inflates the mesh. I don't know. That's a good, the name of the brush is how you kind of describe it. This is really bugging me though, so maybe we'll use the Inflate Brush on these weird lips of this creature. There we go. Now it's gonna have even more human. Oh, that's not too bad, I guess. Sculpt smooth, smooth, smooth. It's getting a little weird down there. I think it's just because I've lost some volume in the vertices, but it's okay. It's definitely a monkey, right? Maybe? Some kind of monkey. There we go. Maybe we can give some more, like, with this we can give some definition to, it's really, the Inflate Brush is actually quite useful. This is one that I do use quite a bit. For the reason of just like, I don't know, it seems to, it's very, what it does is very, it's not easy to explain, but it's easy to kind of comprehend what it's, how it's applying, how it is, what kind of deformation you get on the mesh. And kind of add more. There we go. Maybe we need to give our monkey some. I know we were making. I said we were gonna make a human, but that's close enough. This is close enough. But it's very much like drawing, and it's very relaxing. It's still looking a bit weird, but we will get there. Don't worry. It always looks weird in the beginning. I think that our problem is that the face is very flat. Like if we look at it from the side, it doesn't really have much to it. So we'll get to a brush that can help us with that here in a second. So we have the Inflate Brush. Now we have the Blob Brush, which is also really useful and does some cool stuff. I use it a lot for creating like, well, for one, like nostrils, I guess, is a good one. If we zoom in here, kind of a weird example, but I will show you. You could also use it for the eyes, but in its normal way, it's in its normal like default settings, just by clicking, and you add sort of it's very much like the Inflate Brush, but more concentrated, I guess. I'll do that. Like we could add. If we wanted to do, you can do. It's really good for like if you're doing a spine of the character, or some kind of like a bony structure almost. I found it to be really useful. We can do some cool stuff with that. But also, like I was saying before, if we invert it, zoom, and use it the opposite way, it can create some really good, some more like defined You can use it to define objects really well. Like I said, it's a more harsh tool than the typical inflate brush, but you kind of get the idea. Though it's kind of made us, it's a little, there we go. Let's just whoa, add some volume here. It seems like, okay, it is working. I think we're having some symmetry issues here. Let me go in here and go back to, where was it at? So our symmetry tab, there it is. There we go. Yeah, so our problem was that sometimes it doesn't, it's still not perfect. So if something seems off and it's reacting weird to how your to your tablet or to your whatever you're using, sometimes it's the symmetry, sometimes it just needs to be remeshed. So we can go in here and I think actually if we use the eyedropper we can select. What that does is it gets a general value of the size of the face that it selected. So I click the little eyedropper and then click the mesh, and it sort of just picks up. So let's do 0.03 would work, I think. Let's do that. Enter. Okay. Remesh. Oh. There we go. Now let's see if we can. There. That's a little better. Not giving us as weird things anymore. Yeah. We can give our monkey some human lips. I know we were trying to avoid it, but I don't know what I did there. You can actually, one note that I just did there, you can draw on either side. Like you don't have to stay on one side. If it's more comfortable for you to, say you're wanting to do something on the cheek here, if you wanted to do this on the other side, you can just swap sides. You don't have to stay on one side or the other, which is really useful. You can actually see what happened there. Over on the tool panel, when I'm holding down Shift and drawing, actually, it did it there for a second. I don't know if any of you caught it, but it switched to the smooth tool. I don't know why sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't, but that smooth tool is down here. So it swapped real quick. I saw it jump down there, and it doesn't always, but sometimes it will. I don't know what the condition is for it to do that, but it does sometimes. I think maybe it's just a little bug or something, because I don't think it's supposed to. I have like a mouth here. Let me focus on the mouth. Is one of the most difficult parts for me as an artist in sculpting. I don't know why, but it's one of those things that's just like really difficult for me to get right. Really difficult. The nose is not so much, but the mouth. The mouth is just notoriously difficult. Monkey. Some kind of monkey. Yeah, so where were we here? Okay, this is probably one of my favorite brushes, the crease brush. Now, it does what it says, and basically, wherever you draw, it sort of pulls those vertices together and creates a harsh crease between them. So it sort of pushes, it sort of removes volume, but it also brings the vertices closer. So you can see here, this is really, speaking of the mouth, super useful for doing things like mouths. But I use it on all sorts of stuff. It's good to give any kind of like, to kind of define things. So yeah, if we just come in here, you can see already that I can really give this monkey here. I don't think I wanted to go, oh no, it's okay, that looks good. But you can really define the certain areas and say like I want to do like maybe behind the ear. You can kind of tell that it defines that area way more. So it's super useful tool. Probably one of the most useful next to just the typical draw brush, in my opinion. I use it a lot. So it can do that, but it can also do the opposite. So I tend to use that a lot too to define edges that I want to be sharp. If you hold down Control, you can, whoops, that was Shift. You can sort of define more harsh areas. So you can sort of give this character like more defined, sharp edge to the brow. Maybe add, I don't know. I don't know if I like the little, well, they're kind of cool. We'll leave them for now. Maybe we'll turn, maybe they look kind of cool. I think we'll leave them. Whoops. Zoomed in way too far. Nope. Stop. Oh, so what's happened is I accidentally zoomed in way farther than I needed to. So the quick shortcut to fix that, and wait, well, actually, I don't have a numpad, so never mind. We'll have to do it through the menu. Viewport. Viewpoint. Let's see. I think it's in Align View. Where is it at? Oh, frame selected is what we want. And on the numpad, it's the period key, which is probably another one of the most useful hotkeys. So just hitting this, boop. It did not do what I wanted it to do. Let's go into object mode and try it. View, frame selected, or yeah, there we go. So essentially what that does is resets everything and recenters your camera around the object that you have selected. So what happened before, or what can happen, I should say, is you could easily get lost in 3D space. It happens. It happens a lot. So say I move over here and I lose my monkey. Like, where did it go? I can scroll around. It's like, oh, there he is, way over there. But I'm not orbiting around the monkey head anymore. I'm orbiting around something random here in the middle of nowhere. And I can easily get lost. So I zoom in or something and like, I don't know, where am I? So we're in object mode. So I can go into view. I can go into align view. Oh, whoops, so not align view. It's up here. Frame selected. Boop. There he is. So if you lose your character and you don't have him selected, you can always come over here to your this is your I guess it's your object list. They call it the outliner, I believe, is the name of it in here. Yeah, outliner. And the outliner shows you all the things in your scene. So here we have our light and our camera, and this is our quad sphere, or our monkey. So we have, you can see as I select these, and the camera and stuff are hidden because in this mode, it hides all those things so they're not distracting. But if we were in a normal Blender project, you would be able to see that these would glow. They would have that orange highlight around them. So anyways, that's a super useful tool, and there it is in the menus, but it's also period on the numpad. So making sure nobody's trying to get a hold of me. Nope. Yeah, so the crease brush. Back to the crease brush. Sculpt mode. Zoom. Super useful. Definitely really cool. Lots of uses. So you can like define more of a shape here in the ear. We can smooth things out. But see, you can see it's switching right there. Maybe I'm in the way. Oh no, that should be good. You can see it on there. I don't know why. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. But if you keep an eye down there, you might catch it. Maybe we want this to be defined a little more to his head so that you can kind of see. This not be as sharp. I like the ridge. I like the nose, the ridge of the nose. Maybe we'll give him a little like crease right here on his nose, so it's kind of a little more defined from his face. There we go. You can do the crease like the nostril crease there. That's a big part of the nose as well. That really adds more character, so it's not just like part of the face. Use this in here too. Smooth it out. Maybe I'll grab my Inflate Brush and give it a little more volume. Cute little nose. There we go. It looks kind of weird from the side still. But that's why you check all your angles. It might look good from the one that you're looking at, but yeah, definitely check your angles. So if we look here, see, I mean, it should be kind of flatter, but I don't want it that flat. What I'm going to do is we're going to move on to some more brushes, and I'll show you what will fix that, what we'll use to fix that. I'll make sure that everything's still online, double check, since I'm not behind the computer anymore. I cannot see what all is going on out there. Seems like we're still online. Everything's looking good. Cool. Close out that. All right, back to it. We lost all our viewers on YouTube. Where did you all go? We've just got let's see. And nobody's watching us on Facebook. Where are our Facebook fans? We have 800 followers. Why aren't any of you watching? Let's see. I see that I'm live. Cool. That is working. Awesome. All right. Just needed to double check all that. Make sure we're still good. Intro to sculpting in Blender. Sweet. Looks good. Okay, where were we? Yeah. So fixing this, it looks pretty good from the front, but I'm not super happy with. I mean, it's not bad. We could do more. So in here, we did the crease brush. Obviously I've been using the smooth brush the whole time, but there is, if you want to select it, and you can actually, if you change the settings in here, it changes the settings when you hold shift and use it. So that's pretty useful if you need to change that stuff, if you want it to be, say, gosh, I don't know what you change, but at least you could change it to use the pressure of the brush, so you can do smoother or like more like smaller smoothing with the pressure, the pin pressure. Yeah. And then we have flatten down here. So flatten does what it sounds as well. This is I've started to use this brush a little bit more. I found some pretty useful, some pretty good use cases for it. Say like this part of the face here. Say I want to like flatten this out. It's a little weird, but it's just tries to, unlike smooth, it tries to find an angle and sort of flatten out that angle. It's kind of confusing to explain, but it sort of tries to, you can see that it's not really affecting a whole lot. It's very, very subtle, but it's trying to flatten out that, whatever it's taking a general idea of the mesh and sort of using that to determine what parts should be flat. It's really good for like hard surfaces, although like sculpting hard surfaces is not a great idea. Sculpting is a lot of times used for organic shapes, not so much like hard surfaces. Like say, I guess if you're doing like a car, maybe you could do more, something with smooth edges you could do in sculpting. But something like even like a table, or like I'm looking at the computer over there, like the computer tower, like that's very angular, has sharp edges. I mean, not sharp, but squared edges. Very, much more, would be much more, would be much easier to do in like box modeling and that other technique that I talked about versus sculpting. One of these days we'll get into doing some box modeling, and I'll show you the difference in how to approach box modeling. But sculpting, I think, is more, you get something quicker with sculpting sometimes. Like it kind of comes together and like you come up with some really creative ideas. Box modeling, you kind of need a plan before you start. It's good to have a plan, um, and have like references and things like that. But we'll get into that one day. Um, so as we go down, fill and deepen. This is a weird one that I don't ever use. I'm not quite sure. It's just some weird stuff. Um, Not the most useful that I've found, but maybe useful to somebody. This is, what's this one? Scrape. Scrape. Scrapes away, I guess. Honestly, don't know much about this one. Definitely don't use it. I guess you can kind of scrape out. Sort of, yeah. Sort of scrape out a shape. I guess that could be kind of useful. Actually, before we go any further, while I'm messing with this part of the face, the eyes, um, we should add some actual eyes. So he's not just like hollow eye sockets. It's probably a good idea. It's always good to add them actually as soon as you have a spot for them. Sometimes even beforehand, to use as a reference. I just didn't because I was explaining other things. But basically, what we're going to do real quick to add the eyes is go back into object mode, and we're going to add these eyes as a separate object. Now, we can do this a few different ways. We can actually hit Shift A on the keyboard, which is the add menu. That's how I would typically do it if I was on my own PC, although since I'm using the tablet mainly, I'll try to stick to using the tablet. I could bind a key over here to the add menu, which would probably be pretty useful, but I'm going to show you how to do it through the file system up here. So add, obviously, mesh, and we want a UV sphere. You can see that now there's a sphere inside his head, and yeah, what we can do is we're going to take this sphere and put it where the eyes would be, but we have kind of a problem here. But well, before we do that, actually, what I like to do, sort of a weird process. You can do this in different orders, but what I'm going to start with is I'm going to go into front view, so we see the front of the monkey's face, and then this menu comes up since we added this UV sphere, and I want it to align to view, and you can't really tell what this did until I move it. But if we go into edit mode, everything should be selected. Zoom out a little bit. And we grab it. I'm going to hit, typically it's G on the keyboard, but I can use the controls over here. But we're going to take it and we're going to move it. And you can see that before it wasn't aligned like radially to the view. That's what I wanted it to do. Because this kind of gives, you can assign materials to this and make it look like an eye. So it's kind of just a thing for texture painting. You can also kind of give it a shape if you wanted. I can shift click. Oops. I don't know if that's going to do what I want it to do. Shift click. No. Please. Definitely not used to doing this part on the tablet. A lot of this I typically do with the mouse and keyboard. But basically, I'm not going to worry about it. So we've got our thing here, but we only have the one eye, and it's only on that side. But we want it to be on both sides, right? We want two eyes, obviously. We're not making a cyclops. So what I'm going to do is come down here, and we haven't really messed with this menu yet. But one quick, simple little thing. If we want symmetry in an object, this is another way to do symmetry. This is the way you do it if you're box modeling, actually. Is to go into, I went in, all these tabs have different settings in them. And I just went to this little wrench icon here, which is your, what do they call this one? The modifiers. I don't know if they actually have, the names don't really show up. But this is your modifier panel. And all the modifiers modify the object. So what we want in here, if we do this drop down, we can see all the different modifiers that we have available. And what we're looking for is the mirror one. So simple as that. It's already set up. It's mirroring on the x-axis, and it's mirroring it on the x-axis. That's as simple as it is. So yeah, now we have two spheres identical to each other on either side. And what we can do now is if we select this, and I'm going to hit L on the keyboard. L on the keyboard selects all linked objects or all linked vertices to whatever vertex you have selected. Super useful hotkey. And I'm going to hit, I can grab it and move it actually. So you can see that when I move this one, the other one on the other side moves identical to it. So yep, we're mirroring it. I want to scale it down a little bit. You can see our little gizmo here for scaling. This green one should scale oh, actually it did not. Control Z, abort. What one do we want? Where's our thing? I actually don't hardly ever use the gizmos. I think if we grab the middle. Yes, okay. Whoa there. It's very unhappy with me. Okay, I'm gonna do this the old-fashioned way. And just hit S on my keyboard, and I'm gonna slowly move the mouse over a little bit. And you want it to be like, maybe like that. Whoop. So just hitting S on your keyboard is a basic scale. And then clicking again sets the scale. Now we have, we'll move it over. And you can already see that we have some eyes for our monkey. Oops. Now he actually can see, and he doesn't just have holes in his head. There we go. Beautiful. Perfect. Let us smooth these out. So back in object mode, right click and go to, where's that? Shade smooth, first option. There we go. It's kind of creepy, but it works. It's better than not having eyes. Now he kind of looks mad. Before he looked happy, but now he's mad looking. I think it's just because his eyebrows are so high up. I think that's why. So now if we go back to sculpt mode, we can see that we can still sculpt this and do whatever, and he's got his eyes. So cool. And we can sculpt around him. It won't affect the other objects. Since this is a separate object, we don't have to worry about messing those up because your eyes are perfect spheres, so they should stay perfect spheres. Most creatures' eyes are perfect spheres. I can't think of any that aren't, but maybe there are. Maybe some lizards or something, I'm not sure. But most of the time, they're perfect spheres. And they're symmetrical. You have the same on either side of the head. So with that, we can now, this doesn't look so bad from the front, it's just like the sides. Like, kind of bad. Actually want to reset my camera here. Go to view. It's being a little weird. There you go. And back to sculpt mode. Cool. Okay. Looking good. Got some eyes in there. Now, we were making our way down here, and now we have, so we went through all these. We went through the smooth and some of the other layered ones. And we have a few more. This is the multi-plane scrape. Some of these are new, actually. I think this one is fairly new. And I haven't messed with this much, but it's kind of like the crease brush in a way. I think it's a little bit, to me, it seems like it's a bit stronger than the crease brush. But you can see, if I go on here, you can actually kind of see either side of it. And I can like make a really sharp crease. It is kind of a weird one, but I can definitely see how it could have a lot of uses. But if I do slightly, not as strong, but I don't like that it like creases around the outside too. But you can definitely get some cool, like say if you're doing like gills on a fish or something, that would be cool. Or just want some extra texture on something, you could definitely do it with that. You can smooth this back out. This is the pinch. This is an interesting one too. I've used this one a little bit, but it's still a little strange. I don't know if I can actually get it to work. You can kind of see it. It's very subtle. I can give him like elf ears. There we go. Pointy ears. Kind of an interesting one. It's not so much like the crease brush, and more or less just kind of I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what it is doing. Some of these, like I said, they just kind of do their own thing and kind of just go along with it. And if it does what you like, you stick with that. Oh, I kind of like him with pointy ears. He doesn't look so much like a monkey with pointy ears. Looks more like a goblin thing. Yeah, why not? This is the grab brush. Super useful one as well. Gives you the ability to, well, grab the mesh and move it around. So this is what I was waiting to get to show you to actually make some major changes to the mesh. The grab brush is a good way to go. So say if we just wanted his ears to be out wider, we can use the grab brush and we can scoot them out, and we can move these back, and we can actually do some major changes to the mesh. And not just like, we're not just adding volume, we're actually moving it around and reshaping it. Now it's super good for doing major adjustments, and it's really useful. I use this one all the time. I think a lot of people use this one all the time. Definitely a useful brush to have in your arsenal of brushes. Whoa there, too much. A little bit too crazy with the grab. I'm just going to kind of like go around and sort of reshape some things. Give him a little more definition to the brow area. I want to maybe make him more, kind of give him sort of more of an eye shape. Like, because eyes are typically, I mean, they can be, obviously it's your preference for your character, but you know, how our eyes work, we have an upper eyelid and a lower eyelid, so we can kind of design it so that our character has something similar to that. He doesn't necessarily need it, but depending on how stylized or realistic a character you're doing, you might want it. Now he's looking a bit more angry. So this is the benefit of having the eyes there, is we can actually use those as reference to where our eyelids have to go. Now he is a very cartoony character, so I don't think we need to worry too much about him actually having proper eyelids, but we'll try to sort of shape it nonetheless. So you can see I can do some like major changes here. It's definitely some kind of goblin now. He's not so much a monkey anymore. Maybe I'll bring his nose out a little bit. And I just want that middle piece to come out so that the nostrils stay back, but there we go. Nice. Definitely a useful one. Grab brush, one of my favorites. Super simple, but totally, whoops, way useful. So let's see. I'm gonna shrink this a little bit and just smooth this out. There we go. Maybe I'll do, since we made some changes, and I didn't do anything major, but just for the sake of keeping things clean, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna remesh. Here we go. Cool. I did move things around a little bit, so it might be a good time to do that. Like this little goblin guy. I like how he went from a cute monkey to a goblin. That's the sculpting process. It happens. You never know what you're gonna end up when you sit down to sculpt. You never really know. But definitely check different angles. Every angle matters, so let's see. So here I'm thinking about going and grabbing the crease brush to add some more deformation or definition, not deformation, but definition to the nose here. But we'll continue on with some of the more some of these other brushes. We're almost to the bottom. This is the Elastic Deform. This is sort of like the grab brush, but a little bit different. It's more, I guess it's more controlled than the grab brush. The grab brush kind of just takes whatever it sees and moves it around. Simple as that. This maybe we should start thinking about the rest of our head here. We haven't really done anything with this part of his head. Because of course, the head is usually connected to the neck, so we should add some space for the neck. So I'm going to scale this up a little bit and just grab this. And although you can see that the fall off, it's kind of affecting this. So maybe the grab brush will be, you can see the difference. So there's some obvious difference that the Elastic Deform grabs quite a bit of what you're like the rest of the mesh. The grab brush, I guess in that instance, what I said, I meant the other way around. The grab brush is more specific to what it grabs, and the Elastic Deform brush is more general with what it grabs. It sort of takes everything and kind of stretches it out more, like elastic. Hence the name. Oh, I lost him. Don't know what I did. Yep, he's way over there. Back to object mode. View, I don't know what button I hit, but I did. And then there it is. Okay. Back to sculpt mode. Maybe we can smooth him out. Add some more. He's trying to get a hold of me now. Nothing from the Mars viewers on Instagram. I know Corey likes to have people message him on Instagram, so you can do the same for me if you have questions. Or you can just chat. That's always great too. Let's see. Do I want to give him a chin? He's looking very goblin-like now. Maybe I'll make his face a little rounder. That way it's not as like, I don't want it to be scary. It's kind of like Yoda almost. Sort of. Kind of getting that Yoda vibe. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Almost smooth him out. Back of the head here. Maybe bring it in. Maybe this is a good time. Let's switch to our Elastic Deform. Just want to kind of shape the skull a little bit more. General, like I said, these are great tools for your general shape of your mesh. Still looking a bit weird down here. Doesn't seem like my smooth brush is doing much. Let's go check those settings. Make sure I didn't hit anything weird. No? Okay. Maybe I just am not pressing down hard enough. That is working. Okay. What am I looking for? Grab. Uh-oh. We did something weird here. I pulled them out. Elastic. See, that's the problem with the Elastic Deform one is it can affect things that you're not trying to affect pretty easily. So use it wisely. Yeah. I think his head goes too far back. He's getting kind of an alien thing going on back here. Yeah, I just need to go generalize this. My smooth brush really doesn't seem to be working very well. Doesn't seem to be doing anything at all. Let me try to go into here. Smooth brush, what's wrong? Do we need more strength from you? That's working now. Interesting. idea what that is. Oh, look at him. Definitely like a Yoda character, I guess. Not starting not to like what I did to the nose. I think I pulled it out too far. Look at it from this way. It's not too bad. Maybe we need to bring out his whole like the middle of his face right here. Maybe that will fix what I'm thinking. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we did a little general sculpting with the grab brush and the elastic deform brush. Next is the snake hook. Now this is also a super useful one. Has a lot of different it's a lot of different use cases, but primarily it's getting very dark in here. Just realize how dark it is. Let me hide this. You could look at little Yoda man. And come over here and change the setting real quick. There we go. The problem is we're fighting the sunset, so okay. It's a little bit better. Let me check in the full screen window. It's still kind of dark, but that's okay. You don't need to really see me at all, but whoops. Go. Cool. All right. So with the snake hook brush, I will just give you a little demo here. Actually, this is one of those instances with the snake hook brush. This is probably the only one that you really probably need to be using the dino topology tool that we talked about earlier to add, because the snake hook will add more clay to your sculpture, essentially. If you see, I'll kind of demo it here. What it's going to do is it's going to grab a piece of the mesh and essentially just drag it out. So if I say I want to do a neck for him here, see, I can just drag this out. Actually, it didn't do too bad. It actually stayed together fairly well. But you can see this is a very drastic tool. It does some drastic change. It makes some drastic changes to your sculpture. Could be a little bit crazy, but this is how you add more volume, or more like actually more structure, I guess. Not so much volume. Yeah, you're adding volume, but you're doing it in a way deliberately to add more workable area to your sculpture. So like I just added the neck here, we can stretch it out so that you can add the rest of the arms. And I'm surprised that it's looking as good as it is without turning on the dino topology. But if we go into edit mode, you can see how it's sort of stretched things out. But it's done a pretty good job of keeping it smooth. You see how dense this mesh is back here. This is not what we want. That's not good. It's too dense. But since we did that, we can actually, let's make a few more changes before we retopologize. See, we can come smooth. And sort of just, we'll make what's called a bust. So it's essentially just like from here up. So we'll leave it just at the shoulders. There we go. Good enough for me. It's got a neck now. So we can go over here and we can do remesh and we can hit remesh. Kind of did some weird stuff going there. Let's look, why is it like that? Let's see. Options, edit mode. It's just part of the remesh. Sometimes it doesn't, obviously it's not perfect. We can actually try this again if we want. Oops, remesh. That's a little bit too much. Let's do, we might actually be able to get away with 0.04. Let's see. Yeah, it's not as bad, but we can come in here and actually, I'll just smooth this up. Sometimes you do have to, obviously it's not gonna keep everything perfect. The higher the number, the more detail you'll lose from your mesh when you remesh it. But I want this. I'm just going to use. I guess let's go with the clay strips brush. I told you that I use that one a lot, so we'll use it a little bit here. But first, I'm just going to smooth this. Now my smooth brush is working. I don't know what its problem was before, but I can smooth this out. Make sure you don't have any weird things going on. But yeah, now I can use the clay brush to add. It's not really great for this character. I like to use it more on more realistic characters. Just like I said, because you can add. It's really great for adding like muscle, defined muscle and things like that. Like I could come in here and like add the triceps or whatever. I know this is a bit high up for this character, but like you can go in and like add the neck muscle. I don't know what that's called. I don't know what that one is. But like you can really kind of define. Probably would like bring this down a little bit, or give us some more shoulder to work with, but for this character it's not a big deal. But I'll just smooth that back out. We want him to be nice and smooth. He's a cartoony character, so not a realistic one. But we'll just leave it. I'll just smooth this out. Go back to our, what do we want to use here? Let's just use the nice smooth draw brush. Whoops. I don't want to do too much here. Maybe just get him little shoulders. We can go down to the Blob Brush is good for muscle too, or like doing adding volume really quickly. Oops, I don't want to smooth it that much, but I'm just gonna have little shoulders and a little volume back there. There we go. Smooth this out. Cool. Yeah, cool. Okay, good enough. There he is. Now he's got shoulders. So yeah, that's the snake hook. Long explanation of the snake hook. Super great tool. So if you wanted to like, maybe I want his ears to be longer or like a weird shape. You can see now, this is what I was talking about that it would do. What if I get real close in here? You can see how it's really kind of stretched out, all these vertices. And you can really see it in edit mode. That's not good. We could just remesh this and it would be okay, I think. But you can also just go through and use the, like we did for the ears originally. Turn on the Dino Topo. Flop. Now that's on. If I do the same thing, whoop, you can see it's beautiful. It doesn't like doesn't do anything that it did before. It doesn't get all weird and artifacty. Of course, like I said, it adds a lot of extra mesh to your scene, but can I teach you how to sculpt? I mean, yeah, that's what I'm here for. So this is just the basic stuff. We're just kind of going over all the different brushes in Blender and like what everything kind of does. But I'm always down to teach anybody how to sculpt. So let's see, where was I here? That's the Dino topology. I'm going to turn it off just in case because it's easy to forget that it's on. But again, snake hook, really cool stuff. You can do some neat things with it. I use it all the time in the beginning stages of just kind of blocking out general like the general shape of whatever mesh I'm working on. So, but we'll turn that off and we'll go continue through our list here. We're almost done. This brush is the thumb brush, and this is pretty much what it sounds like. It's sort of like the grab brush, but instead it takes that area and sort of smudges it across. Well, I wasn't going to get too far into the torso. I was going to stick with doing like the head, but basically what I'd recommend is if you can find like any kind of books on like anatomy, anything like that, or any like a doctor's book on like the muscles or the bones or how the human body is like structured. Those are really great books for doing sculpting, and that you can apply to, you know, even if it's a cartoony kind of character like this, you can apply those techniques to your sculpt. One day we'll get into that. Yeah, any kind of like any kind of thing on like the, I guess mostly they'd be what do you call them? Yeah, anatomy. That's what you want to look up. If you look up anatomy, like human anatomy, you'll find anything to do with like the muscle structure, like I said, or bone structure. Those are the best ways to learn that stuff. And like even it's the same applies if you're drawing. If you're drawing characters, knowing it's a lot of artists will recommend studying anatomy to get sort of the basic concepts of like figure and stuff like that. So that's a good place to start. And maybe one day on stream we'll go into doing more like sculpting of the full character. That would take a lot longer, but once I get over the basics, we might get into that where I can just sort of sculpt and go through that general process. It's pretty much the same as this. I mean, same techniques, but of course I'll probably use references. I haven't been using reference for this. Obviously, this is just kind of like something that came out of my head while we were going through things. But with references, you can definitely, it's definitely a good idea to use references almost always. It's one of those things that I've worked with. Oh, well, when you're studying anatomy, it's kind of part of the process. Um, you sort of have to, you know, the the basics. You have to go. I mean, you have to go kind of back to basics essentially. Like I said, a good thing is like doctor, like because a lot of people when they're learning to be like a nurse or something, they have to study anatomy because they have to know, yeah, like the names of all the muscles and everything like that. Obviously, I don't know the names of all the muscles and things, but it gives you a basic, you know, somewhere to start. And of course, there's so many more. There's a lot of guides out there, a lot of YouTube videos for like starting out in drawing and basic like figure drawing. Um, and that's where I would start with that. I'm not traditionally like I didn't go through that process of learning to draw that way or to sculpt. Honestly, it's just something that I'm very like I said, references are kind of my thing. If I have a photo to kind of use as a reference, that's usually enough to sort of transition into a sculpture. So if I'm looking like if I'm trying to sculpt say say if I'm trying to do a sculpture of a fish, I guess, then I would go and look up, like, say I wanted to do a shark. Obviously, I'd go find a bunch of references of photos of sharks. Um, I guess you could. Yeah, you totally could. You could sculpt pretty much anybody. If you're skilled enough. I don't think I could. But if you you know, if you really get into it and you learn all the skills you need to, I think, you know, with your references, you know, you could totally sculpt anybody you wanted. I think it would be totally doable. People do like 3D caricatures like kind of like when you go to an amusement park and you get your like you sit down and the artist will draw a caricature of you and whoever else is with you or whatever. People will do the same thing with 3D sculptures, and they'll do like 3D sculptures of celebrities as well. So, but where were we? We were at the thumb brush here. We can essentially it's like the grab brush, but it's like it smears stuff around. Same with like if you're doing 2D drawing and you wanted to smear two colors together, that's kind of the idea of the thumb brush. It's like pushing your thumb on something. Next is the pose brush, and the pose brush is a new one, and it's pretty fun. It does what it sounds like it does. It can pose your character. So say really all we have here is the ears to pose, but say we wanted to actually have the ears lower on the head, you can kind of see that line that's coming up on the screen that's sort of connecting to the end of the circle is the area that the brush will affect. So if we click and drag here, you can see that I can actually like move the whole ear. So if he had arms or whatever, or legs, you could pose the character. Some people will sculpt and then they won't even use what's called a rig or anything. They'll just they won't put bones in the character. They'll just pose it like this. It's sort of a quick way to get renders of your sculptures. You can also use it for small modifications like this. Say if I did want his ears, of course it's a little weird, but say if I wanted his ears like that, I could do that, and then I could come in and I could fix this and smooth them out, and then his ears will stay down. I'll just like this a little bit. It's so smoothed. There we go. Now he's got sad ears. So there we go. I totally changed the whole thing of the character just from that one brush really quick. So that's a great one. And I think that the rest of these, nudge is what it sounds like. Moves things around. It's kind of like the grab brush. I don't use it very often. It's a newer one as well. Rotate, another one that kind of is newer. I honestly don't know. I don't think I know how this one works. Oh, there it goes. Oh, okay. Okay, just go around in circles. I'm not quite sure what this would be useful for, but I guess if you were making a cinnamon roll or something, that would be useful. Or hair, that would be kind of a cool one for hair. Add a little bit of like curvature to the hair. But as far as faces go, this could be kind of useful. You wanted to like rotate something. It seems to be very. Wow. Okay. That's kind of cool, actually. That's a neat one. I have not used that one. And then the rest of these are kind of special cases, and they're a little bit more advanced, and I don't think we'll have time to get into them today, so I'm probably gonna leave them for another time. Or honestly, I don't know much about these last ones. These are all new in this newest version of Blender. A lot of them have to do with some physics stuff and some to do with masking, which is a whole nother thing. Some are, yeah, extra stuff that we don't really particularly need to get into. Yeah, so I mean, basically that's some basic stuff in Blender with sculpting. And I think that we'll probably get into this some more later down the road if you guys are interested. Man, it is really dark in here. We've run out of light. But it was so nice and well lit when we first started. But that's okay. Anyways, so yeah, probably later in April we will come back to doing some Blender stuff. We'll probably go back to Corey. And then we may switch out between me and him. I'm not sure what that's gonna look like, but I will definitely be posting on our social media stuff and making sure everybody's aware of what's going on. What else? Yeah. I guess I'll sign off, and we will next week The same time, we'll be doing, like I said, some streaming demos. And also tomorrow is Access Humboldt's Media Makers Night, which you can find links to on their website at Access Humboldt. Access Humboldt. Let me see. Let me double check so I tell you the right URL. AccessHumboldt.net. On their front page, you can find, where's it at? Scroll down a little bit, and the Media Makers Night is like the fourth thing down, and they've got the link to it. If you click on there, yep, join the Zoom meeting. So that starts at 5:30 on the 2nd, tomorrow. I will be there talking about live streaming stuff, just sort of general, things, Q&A sort of style, giving some overviews of what I use and how I use it. So yeah, cool. Well, I hope you all enjoyed watching me sculpt stuff in Blender and maybe learned something today, and maybe you got inspired to try it yourself. And I will probably be back. Well, I guess I'll be here next week and the week after, and then it will probably be back to Corey. So maybe we'll be back doing some more Blender stuff in May, I believe. So cool, awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining me, and hope you all have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. And come join me at Access Humboldt Media Makers Night tomorrow, 5:30 on the Zoom link. I will probably post it. I think there may be a post on our social media. If not, I will post it again tomorrow. Cool. All right. Have a great day, guys.